No. Literally, there are people that are speaking out today. Specifically, for example, a man that was on death row over in San Francisco that she withheld evidence for, or she would not let him continue to test in order to prove his innocence.
Wasn't her
in
position.
order to prove his innocence.
You're holding her accountable
in order to prove his innocence.
Job duty.
And Gavin Newsom had to step in on her behalf and override her in order to ensure that the man wasn't executed.
Hold on, Jameisha. All right, hold on.
Wait. Right here, shoot me up. Because
wait. Anton, that's one.
On
what about everybody else?
Hold on, Vic. Hold on.
I can speak on that. I can speak on more about her reputation.
Okay, cool. She wasn't responsible.
I'm gonna let her finish.
She was in that position. What happened was not under her. That wasn't her responsibility.
It was under her. She was the district attorney of San Francisco at the time. 100%. And more importantly, there is evidence and a person's family member that was in charge of what was happening inside of the lab, which ultimately is the thing that people were complaining about as far as all of these false drug charges that was being levied against Black people over in San Francisco. The family member of the person that tampered with the evidence inside of the San Francisco lab, and this is a fact. This is not my opinion. You can go and research it. Hold on. Literally, she opted to continue to go forth with the prosecution of these people, even though they knew for a fact that a lot of this evidence had been tampered with, but they were playing with people's freedoms. And so if you want to sit here and have a conversation with me about character of a person, we have real evidence about how it is that she treats people that look like you.
That's trying to from the lower prosecutor.
Wait.
Out of that situation.
Listen, we can keep going.
Transparency in the justice system. So it came from a lower prosecutor. That was not her job or her responsibility.
Yes, it did.
Yes, it was. Because she's a Black woman.
That's like saying Fonnie Willis, who's overseeing Fulton County District as a district attorney of Fulton County, is not responsible for what happens in her office, especially if she have evidence to the contrary of whether or not somebody should or should not be prosecuted. Stop. Don't gaslight me.
I'm not gaslighting you, but who's going to get fired? Who's going to get fired? Is it her or she going to have to do
the about getting fired? It's about whether it's not about getting fired.
You're going to
It's about whether or not she actually did the right thing as the district attorney of San Francisco. It's not about being fired. Listen, she was never supposed to be in this position in the first place because she didn't even win the primary when she was running in 2019. She got the least amount of votes. They gave y'all her. They gave her.
What are you talking about?
And more importantly,
Trump's the whole thing. You gave us Trump.
More importantly, to go back.
What are you talking about?
To go back. Trump actually won the primary.
He's a fucking felon.
Anyways,
the Republicans don't want Trump.
To go back to the original point.
What are you talking about?
Even Andrew Yang and all of the Democrats in 2019, you could have went through his website and looked through every single one of his policies that he was proposing as a primary candidate. You don't have to wait to the Democratic National.
Where's Andrew Yang at right now?
Stop, bro. Stop.
What was the case?
You don't have to wait until the Democratic National Convention.
What was the
Republican National Convention to have proposed policies? Vivek Ramaswamy had proposed policies on his website as a primary candidate prior to the Republican National Convention, in which they determined that Trump was going to be their representative on the Republican side. Stop gaslighting me, acting like that she don't have to have policy or she don't have to have proposed policy.
Jameisha, you got to listen
days away from the November election.
All right, so Anton,
how you gonna vote for somebody that ain't even got no policy?
Trump has been running for the last 3.5 years. What are you talking about? He's been running since 2020.
No. She gonna come up here and tell me
I'm waiting on the case.
She said she was independent, but she was voting on somebody and she didn't even know what the proposed policies are yet.
Who said that? I'm well versed in governmental affairs. I'm letting you know, regardless. Well, that's okay. What case? What case did she withhold evidence on?
Sound like it.
What's the case she withheld evidence? Because it can't
let me go in and do some research because I didn't know that we was gonna actually be citing
it's
cases.
The George.
You said a name. Case. You said a name.
He wasn't elected into office when that happened. But go ahead, when you look it up, holla at me.
What was the name of the person you said she withheld?
Jameisha? What was the case?
The name of the case that he's speaking on is the George Gage case, and it shows and explains that she wasn't even in office when the lower level prosecutors did that. But you could go ahead and blame it on her. And
don't worry, I'll deep dive into it. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna deep dive into it.
And suck my dick from the back.
Wait a minute. Come on now. What are we doing?
Where did wait. Where'd that come from?
Yeah, where the fuck did that come from?
I'm talking to these people in here calling me ignorant and going in, so I'm gonna
ignore the
let
chat.
you know.
No,
Like I can't type in the chat.
No,
why are you paying attention to the chat?
She's new.
Don't.
Listen, they're new. You got it. As I said, Jamisha, ignore them people in the chat. They live in their mama's basement.
Anton.
No, they don't live in their mama's basement. And chat lives matters, and they can disagree with us. But I don't believe in censoring the chat just because we don't necessarily get the support from the people that we think is supposed to support.
But I'm not about to be nobody's bitch up in the chat, though. So that's one thing I'm gonna speak on. I'm not nobody's bitch. You can say whatever the fuck you want, but I'm not nobody's bitch. Let's get that clear.
So Anton, to the lab tampering, I also want you to look up.
So sweet.
All right, so to the lab tampering, when you get a chance, I want you to look up.
Hold on. Let me reset for the people that
all right, go ahead, bro.
Familiar, all right? Please do not pay attention to the chat. Please do not pay attention to the chat. They're not a part of this conversation. It's like people that is watching it on TV and having a difference of opinion.
They're in the stands.
3,600 people.
Okay, my bad. Thank you for schooling me and giving me the tools to understand this panel. Thank you.
So Anton, when you get a chance, I want you to look up all the cases Kamala threw up because of the tampering in that
Okay,
lab.
I'll look into it.
Appreciate it.
Q, you muted.
Oh, Victor.
Pardon?
Go ahead. Oh, I thought I turned the chat.
No, I was just wanting to know that name because I knew somebody had misspoke because she was Attorney General, not a DA. But I just went to your I just followed you though, bro. I love diversity and conversation too.
Who, me?
Yeah. I wasn't on the
No. Listen. Y'all got to understand that when we debate these topics or when we get passionate about what it is, I don't look at y'all personally and feel no type of way about you.
Me neither.
So, and this is go for Jamisha and anybody else that's watching this. When this is over, y'all cool. Like, I don't want y'all to take none of this personal. We just get passionate about the different topics that we talking about. And so just leave it here and go to sleep at night knowing that nobody cares afterwards.
Nah, fuck that, Anton. When I see you outside, I'm gonna catch you upside your head, bro.
But you know, can I ask you a question, Anton? Since you asked them the question why they're voting for Kamala, why are you voting for Trump?
Well, I mean, I kind of went over this a lot. I talk about it a lot of times. I actually support, first of all, being tough on immigration, which is something that Obama actually aligned with. And Obama was labeled as the deporter in chief. And Trump largely carried over his policies, but because people vote based off of politics, they decided to go against Donald Trump when it is that he actually advocated for the same thing that both Biden and Obama advocated for when they were running for office and when they got into office. So Obama deported more people than any other president in my lifetime. Trump carried over his policies. I believe in immigration, but I believe in legal migration into this country. That's number one, because if you can't protect your borders, then you can't protect the United States of America. What I seen over the last 3.5 years was they were suing Texas in order to force them to open up their borders. Sanctuary cities is going wild. They funding these migrants. They living in hotels. And she was largely labeled and she was given a task of being able to oversee what is happening at the border. That was one of her first things that she was supposed to do in 2021. Number two, I support American workers. And the renegotiation of the North American Free Trade Agreement back in 2016 through 2020, as far as with Canada and Mexico, and then also making sure that he saved the steel industry, which I am passionate about because I have a lot of people that still work in the steel industry. I worked in the steel industry when I was coming up and when I first graduated from high school, and then also American jobs. It largely is a trickle-down effect as far as continuing to push foreign products into American soil without it being a fair trade agreement on both sides. I'm also a heavy supporter in what it is that he did from a tax perspective, because what it did was it allowed for American companies to bring foreign investment back into America at a lower tax rate, which was one of the reasons for the tax cuts in the first place. I believe in smaller government. because I do not believe that the government should be playing a large role. I believe in less regulation, especially when it comes to energy, because it makes us less dependent on foreign oil. And it also allows for people to have a choice of whether or not they want to pick an EV, a hybrid, or a gasoline car, especially with the level of oil reserves that we have in the United States of America. So it's a whole lot of different reasons and a lot of policies that I support on Trump's side. I also am a fan of what he did for Black America when it came to opportunity zones, which was also a part of Tim Scott's, what him and Tim Scott worked on as far as what was happening in the red zone here in Detroit, over in Chicago, as far as making sure that they didn't continue to gentrify, but it gave opportunities over to Black people. It's a lot of different policies that I like that he did that I think is going to carry over into being a president of the United States of America. So everything that I support with regard to Trump has nothing to do with Kamala Harris, but I can separately, objectively evaluate her and say she has done nothing, and everything that she's done as far as being a part of this administration, which she should still be responsible for, has failed the United States of America. And everybody is worse off than they were 3.5 years ago.
Anton, I got one question.
As far as those opportunity zones, now when I did my research on opportunity zones, and we all we don't just wake up and know this stuff. We all research it. We find out the facts that we believe to be true. The opportunity zones, from the research I've done, was a failure for the Black community. It only gave money to big business. It's what fostered the new wave of gentrification in Black communities. It didn't give jobs to Black people. Now, with the new Google that we have, ChatGPT, when you ask it properly, it gives you facts, and you and everybody listening can go look up the opportunity zones benefit Black people, and it's going to tell you. Just like when you were speaking, I wrote some notes. You was talking about DEI has to go. I happen to be on a board, and on this board with this organization that hired people had a history of hiring majority white people. When this board became majority Black people got opportunities to actually be looked at, because those that were hiring, I think they had the feeling that they'll be scrutinized if they continue to hire all white people. Where it turned out Black people were the best option, and several jobs in this board and organization that I worked in for a period of time.
What jobs?
Hired more Black people during a 3-year period than they had done in the history of this organization, and they've all worked out well. They didn't just hire Black people because they were Black. If diversity, equity, inclusion is done properly, it actually allows for people to really not hire somebody they might feel comfortable going out with at night. It allows them to hire the best people that's here.
How does diversity, equity, and inclusion allow for you to hire the best people when it literally...
I can tell you.
Go ahead.
If you hear my example, what I'm telling you, I believe that the people that were doing the hiring was just having their way. When they knew they had a board that was majority Black, they knew they had to scrutinize and look at these applications much deeper. And by doing so, with the hiring committees that were in place that had to judge on a rubric these applications and the experiences of the people, Black people ended up getting more jobs. But when those
wait. When you said they had to evaluate them on a rubric, what do you mean? I'm slow. I'm a C student.
No, you're not. I can tell you not. A rubric is
I am a slow person. I'm a C student.
A rubric is like a scale. You can't just look at somebody, have a good rapport with them when you take a break and say, I'd rather work with you, so I'm going to hire you. You have to actually look at their credentials and what they can bring to the table. Mm-hmm. And when you're forced to actually look at the experiences and the education of people, and a lot of times you'll see that there are more Black people that should get the job. And that's what diversity, equity, inclusion, when done properly, does.
So we can't, number one, we can't quantify whether or not they were actually the best people for the job. It's impossible.
But you can't say it's diversity and equity inclusion is a bad thing across the board either. It's
100% a bad thing. Tim Walz is a diversity, equity, and inclusion pick because they're using him in order to get a specific type of vote. They're not picking. Hold on, wait. Literally, they're not picking him.
When white people got jobs over Black people all the time, that was diversity, equity, inclusion because they included who they wanted to.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Okay.
100% not. And so we know for a fact that Biden, for example, selected Kamala Harris, who had literally practically called him racist in a debate. He selected Kamala Harris in order to secure a vote. It wasn't that she was the best person for the job. She wasn't even the best person on the debate stage.
You want to talk about JD Vance?
No. Hold on. If we really just want to go based off of what America was selecting in 2019 and whether or not she was the best person for the position, and then we could retroactively look at whether or not she did her job based off of what it is that they tasked her with, she was not the best person for the position at all. But we know that they selected her in order to win a certain demographic of people that was going to vote based off of their emotions.
So, Anton, you brought up the border control earlier. You said that was Kamala's job, correct? If Trump cared so much about the border, then why did he nip the bipartisan that the Democrats and Republicans had?
First of all, he's not a legislator. He's not in office. He can't nip anything. And number two, the reason that he did it, I'm gonna answer your question still.
Go ahead.
But the reason that he did it is because Democrats, A, was trying to justify the fact that they left the borders open. B, they tied the legislation over to funding to Ukraine, Taiwan, and Israel. And what Republicans were saying is that those are two separate issues. The borders are a different issue than funding these proxy wars. And if you look at the legislation that they pushed through, they actually pushed legislation to make sure. And so Democrats were saying, well, we want money in order to continue to fund Zelensky and over in Ukraine. And we want that on condition of making sure that we can push through this bipartisan agreement. If you go back and you actually study it, they pushed it through along with it. And if you look at the infrastructure bill, if you look at the CHIPS Act, they always put a bunch of stuff in there that has nothing to do with what it is that they're advertising. And so Republicans and Trump in particular was saying, we need to nix this deal because they don't want to address the border. And they're aligning it with funding these proxy wars. And that's exactly what happened. That's to answer your question.
So hold on, wait. So if my left hand, I want to, fund the wars for Ukraine, blah, 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 blah. And my right hand, the Republicans want to close the border. And I'm coming to you as a Democrat. Hey, we can hit two birds with one stone. You still going to nip it in the bud?
100%, because that shouldn't be, listen, it's some deals that shouldn't be bipartisan. And we should all agree. And I think that everybody everybody on this panel should agree that we should have secure borders. That should not be something that we need bipartisan agreement for.
Why hasn't it happened?
Let's take a roll call on it because I agree with secure borders.
We all agree.
That's not something that we should be holding up or debating. You shouldn't be bending Republicans over a barrel over the fact that you want to fund making sure that our borders are secure. That's not even something that you can argue.
But
I'm going to fucking argue it though. God damn it!
Kamala says she wants comprehensive immigration. That's one thing she's saying. But they're all saying things.
But it don't matter what they say because we know during the Biden administration that 10 to 15 million migrants illegally walked over into this border and they sued Texas from preventing people from crossing the border illegally. So I don't care what she say. I know what happened over the last 3.5 years because I covered it extensively on my other show. Every day we had 2,000 and 3,000 people on a morning show and we went through every single thing that was happening on the border for 1.5 years straight. I know what was happening. So I don't care what she say. I'm going by what they did.
So I have a question for you. Do you think the candidate that you're voting for supported DEI in his previous administration?
Hopefully he didn't.
He did though, because he was the one. But he did though. The first step. So
and here's the thing.
And then the HBCUs. So you don't support HBCUs and them getting funding, or you don't believe in having HBCUs?
No, I don't believe in separation. I don't believe in that at all.
Are you serious?
And here's the beautiful part about it is I don't have to agree with 100% of I don't agree with 100% of what my mama say, but I still support her because overwhelmingly she comes up with better ideas sometimes when it comes to what we having a conversation about. So I may not agree with everything that Trump does.
So can I ask you
agree with the majority of what he's advocating for? You
say you don't believe in separation. So do you feel when it comes to education that it's equal or there's equity across this country when it comes to education for K through 12?
Probably not. Absolutely not.
So then,
but that's largely based off of, listen, the way that we fund schools is largely through your property taxes.
You don't have to tell me how we fund schools. I do know.
So I'm not telling you. I'm also having a conversation.
I know. I forgot that.
So I'm prefacing this conversation by making sure that I add value and I give the audience an understanding of why I'm going to answer the way that I'm answering based off of the questions that you're asking me. Go ahead.
So education, what is your viewpoint on education when it comes to the administration that you would like to vote for?
What do you mean? Specifically what? Because education is broad.
Because he
It's
wants
broad.
to
We can
get
go
rid of,
through
that's
pre-K,
not
we can
broad.
go
There's
through
only
elementary
one
school,
form
we can go
of
through
education. You have colleges, you have K
Mhm.
through 12. So I'm asking, if he wants to get rid of the Department of Education, help me understand why you think that that's a good thing.
What do you mean? Why do I think that that's a good thing? I never said that it was a good or bad thing.
Okay, but I'm asking you
I never
about
spoke on
doing
that.
it. Can you inform me? I'm assuming that you know everything about his policies if you're voting for him, or do you only know the policies that you support? Because I don't want to ask the question if you don't. Okay, so
I am familiar with his stance on the Department of Education, and
so I
am
want to know
familiar
your
with
viewpoint
I'm
on
familiar with his stance across the board, and that he think the government is too bloated and there's certain organizations that are no longer needed, which I may not necessarily agree with everything that he says.
But I'm asking specifically about education. Do you
What about
agree that it should be on state levels, knowing that there's not equitable allocation of funds?
100% it should be on the state level. I think that the majority of the decisions that are happening within the United States of America, whether you talk about abortion, education, I think that most of it should go to the state level, similarly to how it happened during the pandemic, which it basically removed the majority of the power from the president, and every governor decided what it is that they wanted to do on a state level, 100%.
So,
and I think that would actually galvanize voters more, because the local elections and what happens on a local level is more impactful than what happens on a national level.
Absolutely. I was elected to local office, so I understand that. So now that we're on the same level, right? So we done took federal government and we done gave everything to the states. So when I speak,
not everything.
Okay, you're right. So when I speak, I just want to say that I'm we, meaning that it's something that I can do too. So if we're at the state level when it comes to education, right? And I'm looking at you and I see you as a black man, so I'm going to assume you're a black man. And I'm looking at you and understand, and I'm assuming that as a black man, you do understand the plight of black and brown communities. So if we put education on the state level, and all states are not, we're gangbanging. There's some fully red, there's some fully blue, there's some in the middle. We know Democrats want to have wild shit in the education system that we may not agree of, and we know the Republicans want to take shit out of the education system that we may not agree of. When we come to resources in education, because we know we need to be educated to be able to have jobs and continue the function of this country that we live in, if the states are not properly allocating funding to cities and counties, how are we going to be able to educate our children? And I speak from the minorities, right? I'm speaking of that mindset. How can we afford or have the ability to take care of our kids in the education system if we're not set up for success when it comes to having schools or charter schools where we can?
You're not asking a direct question as to solve for the education problem in the black and brown community, as you stated, right? Because again,
where the resources going to be at, how we get the resources.
Well, it's allocated on a state level, and so that then means that you remove responsibility from Congress in particular, and you remove responsibility from the president in particular, and you want to start having a conversation with your local legislation as far as how it is that they're allocating the resources and whether or not it's going to the places that you want it to go to.
And if you don't have people in the local legislation that represent what you need, right?
No, it's not an if. They do represent what you need.
No, they don't. There's
yes,
people
they
that are
do, because
me that don't represent me. That's possible.
And that means that you have a cultural problem, because you and I know both that, especially on an off-cycle election years where it's not a national election, that the voter turnout rate is less than 10% in most urban communities that you say that they need those resources. So I believe that on a cultural level, it's up to them to then determine what's best for them by participating and becoming informed voters. And so because listen, if a Missy Elliott concert come through or a Future concert come through, you're gonna have everybody in the community there. But these community meetings that you have on a regular basis, they're not gonna be there. So it's a cultural issue. That it has nothing to do with the responsibility of the elected officials, because the elected officials is just a reflection of the people.
Right. So, and we only have one vote. So if I'm only a section, right, because you have your whole state, and if I'm the only section and I have this person that I need to vote for, just because I want to vote for this person doesn't mean my neighbor votes for this person. So I can still live in a situation where even though I did exercise my right to vote for the candidate that I want to get in, the other candidate got more votes. So now I'm in a situation where my funding is not going to be represented the way that I need to, because that person that I didn't vote for never had me in their viewpoint. So therefore I'm living under state guidance, and my kids aren't getting educated because there's not enough funding coming to my community. So then where do I go? Because it's based on your state level, right, for your funding, but also your county commissioners. But if I don't have people in them seats that believe that money should be allocated to general fund to pay for supplies or give more teachers or build infrastructure, what I'm supposed to do as an individual with one vote?
Then that means that you need to go and have just as passionate of a conversation with the people of your community as you having with me on this panel.
Oh, I do. I'm past that. I'm speaking in general.
I'm answering in general. That means that it's an education problem that's happening in the communities. And even when it comes to politics and politicians, they don't go through and say, let me inform you on how it is that you need to be make an informed decision for yourself. They say, get the people out there to register to vote, because they already know that listen, one of the reasons that politicians don't feel compelled to offer y'all anything in your communities is because they already know that you've already sold up the vote when it comes to voting blue in a specific way. The problem with this panel and what's been exhibited on this panel, which is clearly on front and center in the conversation, is that y'all have already made up your mind, regardless of whether or not you identify as independent or independent or a Democrat, that you're voting a certain way. And so they don't have to require anything for your vote.
Is that what
so there's no reason for them to offer y'all anything or to solve for your communities, because you don't have no request, because they already know that they got you. That's so part of the reason is the cultural norms. Y'all already have sold yourselves and sold your souls and tied yourselves to a particular party, and they know that they don't have to offer you anything for your vote. So they're not going to fund your schools. They're not going to represent you. And I also know that they're going to be a reflection of the people that vote or don't vote for them, because y'all don't participate. And more importantly, the culture is not educated and informed on how it is that they need to be voting. So it doesn't even matter. I think that they're going to suffer. The only thing that other people in other states are saying is, don't bring California over here to Texas. Don't bring Chicago over here to Florida. They want people to stay in the spaces that they are and deal with the consequences that came along with elected officials that ultimately are representing and making decisions on their behalf. It's a cultural problem. Has nothing to do with the legislators. The legislators is just a reflection of the people.